Today is December 13th, 2011, but that doesn't really matter because all this is a review for the final exam. The I can statement for today is the same as I can statement for yesterday, which is also the same I can statement for tomorrow, and that is I can study my butt off for the final exam. Final exam is Thursday or Friday, depending on what class period you have. Now on the board, I had this, continue to study working on the study guide from the what I gave the students yesterday, which is just the first part, and I'll show you that here in a minute. Also, there are new study guides today for US, Canada, and Latin America, and I also included the one over Europe. Also on the board today, a review. I had copies of the tests for students to review at their seat if they wanted to. They could not take the keys to their desk. I just taped those to the board so they could check their answers. Students will also not be dismissed from class until all tests, there were 12 copies, are returned to the board, and leaving class will cost you a pass, which is 10 to 15 points. Students got extra credit for having both passes for the entire 9 weeks, never leaving class. And this is what the class looked like in the front board. These are the directions right here that I just read. These would be all of the tests here across the top. And there were 3 tests over US and Canada, 3 tests over Latin America, and then 3 tests over the second part of the intro, and then 3 tests over the first part. So there were opportunities for students to take a look at the previous tests and quiz themselves if that's what they felt like they needed. So in terms of studying and what students need to study, there was a final exam study guide, which I'm just going to go through very, very quickly here. Pause it as you need to. We read over all of this on Monday. 100 questions, all multiple choice matching, true, false, Cantron type stuff, no writing components. All questions will have only one answer instead of the dreaded multiple answer, multiple response. There are also more questions about the first 2 units. The first 2 units were introductory units. There are more questions because it was a long time ago. We need the review, and also because they're the foundation for everything we're going to do second semester as well as first. Not everything on the final exam down here. Not all items on the final exam study guide are going to be directly on the assessment piece. Some are just there to support the questions that are on the final. But everything that's on the final we're going to cover in class in one way or another. And then this right here is a breakdown of each of the units and how many questions are on each unit. So if you're studying, you need to look at the introduction most closely, since there are 29 questions, almost a third, but the final exam is just over that one unit. The schedule for Brownsburg looks like this. So if you have me third period, you'll take the test on Thursday, final exam on Thursday. If you have me 6th period, you'll have me at the end of the day for the final exam on Friday. And then here's the review. This is the part that you can pause if you need to. That was over the first unit. This is over the US and also Canada. This is over Latin America. The important thing here, locating the following, it's going to be map items, and any of these things where it says locate the following, letters could point to those items, those countries, and then students would have to match that up with what country is it pointing to. So, for example, test question might show a map of Latin America, and then it says, is A, B, C, or D pointing toward Mexico, and then they'll obviously have to know which one's pointing to Mexico. So I'm not trying to trick you, just telling you what to make sure that you know on the map. Excuse me. Northern Europe, same kind of thing. These are all of the questions and the topics for Northern Europe. Western Europe was the next one. This would be this area. Southern Europe. And Eastern Europe. So there really should not be any problems at all. Who's this guy? This guy is Slobodan Milosevic. Slobodan Milosevic was the guy, Yugoslav president, Serb president, 1989 to 2000. So he was the guy that was in charge of this Balkan region during the time that everything was kind of falling apart. Remember, the Soviet Union was collapsing finally, and it collapsed in 1991. As a result, since the Soviet Union isn't babysitting the Balkans anymore, controlling them, the Balkans wanted their independence as they had prior to World War One. So they're fighting for their independence again, and this was the guy that was kind of in charge, not of the independence movements, but of that region. He was in charge of that country. So the Balkans start to break away, then he kind of gets saddled with everything that happens that's bad in that region. In 2000, he steps down as president. He resigns his position, and almost immediately after that, he is tried for crimes against humanity, which is really just a nice way of saying genocide, but is not found guilty because he died before he could be found guilty. This guy is Tito. Tito, also Yugoslav leader. He's a communist dictator of Yugoslavia up until 1980. He's communist and a dictator, so the United States is not a big fan of Tito, even though Tito did do pretty well to keep all those Balkan areas from fighting one another. Maybe it's because they were funded by the Soviet Union. Maybe the Soviet Union pressured them to not fight for their independence, to break away as kind of the satellite countries. Either way, just as Milosevic is credited in a negative way for everything bad that happened as Yugoslavia was falling apart as a country, this guy, Tito, is credited for everything good that happened. This guy, Machiavelli. Machiavelli is the guy that wrote The Prince. We talked about The Prince for some time. Also showed a video about it and what it all means. Pretty negative view of how things were supposed to go for leaders in general. Remember from the video, he talked about how 9/10 of being a leader is really an act, being an actor and kind of playing the role. Talked about being a wolf in sheep's clothing, to appear one way and then do something else, and again, it's all to solidify your power. So one of the other things is you need to appear steadfast, but at the same time be able to be flexible, strong character, strong will of character, kind of do what you got to do to maintain that power. This guy, President Jimmy Carter, he's the one that was in charge during the signing of the Panama Canal Treaty. We saw this in class, and this has kind of been a while ago. In class, we showed his response, really, to the American people, and he was the one that signed over the Canal Treaty, even though the Canal Treaty said that the Panama Canal would not be entirely signed over to the Panamanians until 1999, which was, of course, 20 years after he was no longer president. This guy, Martin Luther, he was kind of in charge of the Protestant Reformation. There's a lot of stuff on the test about this guy. Indulgences would be the thing that he was most upset about with the Catholic Church, although there were 95 things, 95 theses, 95 concerns, complaints about the Catholic Church. He nails these to the church door, which was pretty much standard operating procedure back then. He also wanted the Bible to be printed in a language that everybody could read and everybody could understand, which kind of usurped the authority of the priests, which obviously didn't bode well either. And then this is a map of the Crusades. This is Jerusalem. The reason I show this map, excuse me, is the first Crusades started by Pope Urban II. Pope Urban II allows kind of for all of this to happen. You'll see Byzantine Empire up in the top. And what happens is in the Crusades, Crusades are really fighting over Jerusalem, making Jerusalem safe for Christians. Remember, Jerusalem's the holy city for a lot of different religions, and Pope Urban II wanted Christians to feel comfortable going there. So, obviously that worked out. The Crusades, since Jerusalem in the Middle East is such a safe place now. Anyway, whatever, being sarcastic. at this point. I don't know that anybody's listening. It's 10 minutes in. Those of you that are paying attention still, I do appreciate it. We'll go over a couple more things in class tomorrow. You got all the questions, you've got all the answers, you've got the notes. Be prepared. Read the questions carefully, slowly. Make sure you bring something to class if there's any extra time. Not going to be able to leave class early to work on another final exam or anything like that. And like I said, I'll probably make another YouTube video or two just to kind of finish it up. And do the very best that you can. And if you missed today, you missed a lot.